In 2014, I was working at the downtown Nicollet Mall Macy's in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I think it was 2014. It might have been 2013 or 2012. I honestly don't remember. No, I do remember. It was 2013, not 2014. And I was working as a flex worker for putting out merchandise. Flex work as in it could be at one time or another time in the morning. It wasn't always the same time that I started work. It wasn't always the same days that I worked. It was kind of like I was scheduled when they needed me. And at the time that was okay, I suppose. It was actually quite frustrating because I was going to school at the same time, so it wasn't the best, but I did it. And I usually worked at 5 a.m. to about 9 a.m., I would say, or 8 a.m. I think it was more like 8 a.m. Anyways, I digress. So I worked at the downtown Macy's, and I hated that job, and I hated that place, and I still hate Macy's, and I will never walk into another Macy's ever again, because they suck. Sorry if you like Macy's, but it sucks. I can do a whole episode on how much I hate Macy's, but I won't. I'll just talk about what I was going to talk about here. So one day I took the bus, because I didn't have a car at the time. I took the bus down the road into downtown Minneapolis and did my shift and left and realized that I needed groceries. And there were two places that I got groceries at. I got groceries at the downtown Target, which was only 2 blocks away, and I would take the bus back to my apartment. Or I would go to the CVS that was at the end of my street by my apartment. And that was just for like little things that I needed. Another thing that I would do is I would go with the college, because the college I went to, Minneapolis College of Art and Design, they took 2 vans down to a shopping complex where we could shop and get stuff that we needed. And that was pretty okay too, so sometimes I would go with them. But this one day I was like, oh, damn, I need groceries. So I decided to go to the Target downtown. The Target downtown is huge. It has 2 floors, and they have a escalator that will take grocery carts. So you put your grocery cart into like this little container thing, and then as you're going up the escalator, your grocery cart comes with you. It's actually really cool. So I went into this Target and I got the things that I needed, and on the walk over from Target, it was May. I believe it was May time. Or April. It was definitely springish time. And to get to this Target, you had to walk by a whole bunch of bars and a whole bunch of restaurants. And they would have hanging baskets hanging out by the restaurant for their outdoor customers to enjoy or to ignore. And I was walking, and I wasn't paying attention because I was getting a text message, and I walked straight into a hanging plant. Bashed my head against the pot, and the plant swayed side to side and nearly fell off its hook. And that was, I was really upset about that, because I was like, oh no, what if I broke this pot? Ugh, how embarrassing. Ugh, I'm so embarrassed. But I just straightened the pot, and I kept walking. And I felt a little itchy after bumping into that pot. So, I just itched where it itched and didn't really think too much about it. And I'm inside this Target, and I'm getting things, and then I need to go up to the second floor to where they have, like, the pharmacy and the home goods stuff. Because the first floor was all, like, groceries and electronics. And the second floor was, like, clothes, pharmacy, and home goods. And went to the second floor, I think to buy witch hazel, actually. And I'm walking, and I'm itchy again, so I itch. And then I feel this horrible pain in my armpit. I need to preface this whole story by saying, at the time, I was taking a class called Issues in Abstraction that was really overloaded with homework. And at the time, I hadn't slept in 48 hours because I was so deep into doing this stupid homework for this stupid class that had a stupid teacher and stupidly didn't matter in the end, and I hate stupid abstract art. Sorry. It's not my favorite thing to look at. It's not my favorite thing to make. I don't like abstract art. I mean, like, I kind of do, but I kind of don't. Just because the teacher ruined it for me. Anyway, so I hadn't slept in 48 hours, so I was pretty loopy at this time, and pretty thankful that there was a bus that I could take to work, because if I had to drive to work, that would have just turned out terribly. I probably would have crashed. I was so out of it. And I'm inside this Target, and I feel this horrible pain in my armpit, and I go like, ow, and I like slap at it, and then I feel something move inside of my shirt and fly out the top of my shirt, and that scared me to death. And so I dropped everything that I had, like, in my hands, because I didn't want to use a cart. Luckily, nothing broke. But this thing flies out of the top of my shirt, and I realized that it's this giant bumblebee, or maybe it was a hornet. I don't know. It was a very big black and yellow striped insect that resembled a bee. And I was so confused. I was like, what the heck just happened? And my armpit hurt so much. Oh my gosh, it hurt so much. And I couldn't put two to two together. I couldn't put two to two together, as in, like, I couldn't realize that this bee had just stung me in my armpit. And I was so confused. And because I was so confused and all my stuff was on the floor, I started crying because my armpit hurt so much and I couldn't figure out why it hurt so much. And so I started hysterically crying in the middle of the Target pharmacy section. And at the time, in 2013, I was in my 20s. So I bet I looked really, really sane to all the other people in the Target, watching this young 20-year-old just cry her eyes out because she's just gotten stung by a bee in her armpit. It must have landed down the top of my shirt when I bumped into the flower pot and then just hitched a ride underneath my clothes the whole time. But I was in excruciating pain and I was crying, and a security officer came by and he's like, ma'am, what's wrong? Ma'am, are you okay? Ma'am, he ma'amed me a lot. And I couldn't get the words out that I just was so overwhelmed with the pain that I just couldn't say what was wrong. And it took like 5 minutes for me to calm down enough just to say, a bee just stung my armpit. And the security officer is just like staring at me, and he's like, oh, okay. Why don't we go to the pharmacy? That was just right around a couple of aisles. And I was snuffling. I said, okay. And he took me to the pharmacy and he explained what happened. And the pharmacist just kind of looked at me, tears still streaking down my face as I was like hiccuping and crying. And they're like, well, here's some salve or something. Let's put it on the bee sting. Eh? And so I had some pharmacy technician dude with his hands in my armpit putting salve over my bumblebee sting and seeing if the stinger was out. Luckily the stinger wasn't in there, so it was out, but it was so embarrassing to have this man, this very this older man with his face in my armpit rubbing salve on my bumblebee sting in the downtown Target in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And, I was hiccuping and like trying to like stop myself from crying. I realized that I was making a fool of myself. And he's like, well, there we go. That's the best we can do for you. Would you like a lollipop too? And in my confusion, because I was so sleep deprived, I was like, yeah, I'll take a lollipop too. So this older man is giving this young 20-year-old a lollipop to calm her down. And I'm sucking on the lollipop, and I said, thank you so much, you saved my life. And I went back to my stuff that was all over the floor, and I picked it up, and I found my witch hazel. And then I waved to the guy and I said, "Thank you for saving my life." And I waved to the security officer. I was like, "Thank you for saving my life." And I went downstairs and I checked out, and I got out and I made sure I didn't hit any other flowering baskets. And I got on the bus and I went home with my lollipop in my mouth. And it was so embarrassing afterward. Oh my gosh, when I finally got enough sleep, cause I went home and I just fell asleep. I skipped classes that day because I was just too tired. And which was so dumb because I'd stayed up so long to turn in that dumb project for that issues and abstraction class, and I just slept through it. I could have had another day. It's just, anyway. So yeah, I went home and I fell asleep, but I woke up and I recalled what happened, and I found the lollipop half finished on my bedside nightstand. And then I started crying again because I was so embarrassed. Oh my gosh, you guys, you have no idea how embarrassed I was. This was one of the most embarrassing moments I've ever had. So what did I do about it? I never went to that Target ever again. And whenever I see a hanging pot, even now, I make sure I give a really wide berth to it. Because you never know if a bee is going to fall out of it and land in your bra and sting you in the armpit. I can only imagine what that pharmacist and what that security officer were thinking, let alone anybody else that was inside the store in hearing range of my bawling. But yeah, that's my story about that one time that I broke down in the middle of a Target. Yeah, it was embarrassing. It was really embarrassing.